back to BLOCKTV. It's time now for Chain Breakers. And when it comes to the myriad uses for blockchain technology, it is no understatement to say that as a society, we're only beginning to scratch the surface of what is possible. Yet, there are those out there determined to push ahead and create the infrastructure necessary to build the next generation of blockchain-based tools. Winding Tree is one such company, and they have developed a number of new products that advance the cause of blockchain technology. And I'm speaking now with Maxim Ismailov, CEO of Winding Tree, who's joined us here to talk about the latest developments. Maxim, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. And yes, I'm very happy to talk about our promises and things that we're developing over the past few years. And you may or may not know, if you follow us from the very beginning, that Winding Tree goal is to create instruments and tools for people to enable a monopoly-free marketplaces. That's the problem that we had with the travel industry, where there's a lot of intermediaries, and we're thinking about how those monopoly-free peer-to-peer kind of markets could work. And OrgID, our latest product, or rather the technology, the foundation for different products that we're building these days, enables exactly that. And OrgID, of course, we can deduct from the name, is an identity for organizations that we figured out after our extensive research that that's exactly what's necessary for people to just be able to talk to each other, for rather organizations to be able to talk to each other without intermediaries. And that's what we've developed. We have a stable version out there on the mainnet. We still continue, of course, working on the standard itself. And we're developing all sorts of different tools on top of this, which is very exciting. And there's quite a bit of activity in terms of decentralized identity in blockchain space and beyond that. And I see that a lot of people understand this problems. A lot of people are excited about fixing them. And I'm happy to be a part of this community, to learn from other people, of course. And I'm very excited, of course, about this upcoming partnership with Kleros, which is an absolutely phenomenal application of blockchain technology as well.
Yeah, well, I want to get to that Claros relationship in a moment, but before we do, just to hash out a little bit more about OrgID, because there's an important question I want to understand about it. So OrgID, as you describe it, is an open source organization registry in order to help provide that sort of identification and verification of company records, the sort of thing that traditionally exists within the hands and realms of governments out there across the world. I, as a journalist, have spent many time on company registries across the world, trying to access various documents and information about different companies. What is it that OrgID hopes to change in that relationship by bringing in that decentralized blockchain technology?
So you're absolutely right that usually those organizational registries are provided by governments, but not all of them, unfortunately, provide the capacity for you to verify things in a completely automated way. So that's one difference. And of course, we have examples like Estonia or some other jurisdictions where that can be done very quickly. But that's not quite enough. As a business, of course, and you're familiar with the processes that banks have, for example, if they work with another company and not an individual, there's a set of processes that called KYB, Know Your Business, because those organizations they have to verify all their partners by law, right? That's legislation. And a simple proof that an organization exists in a certain jurisdiction is not enough for those companies, right? But sometimes they require more information than that. And OrgID is the standard. This is protocol that allows you to expose more information about your organization, not just its legal entity name and the address. So it goes beyond that. And again, it's an open source protocol, and we're hoping to develop and add new things to it. And again, the goal here is to streamline those KYB procedures. And of course, we were inspired by lack of this interoperability in the travel space, where again, airlines and hotels and travel agencies, they have to verify each other. They have to absolutely make sure that the company that they're working with is a company in good standing, that they can trust them, right? And yes, they require a lot more information than just a simple registry from some certain jurisdiction.
All right. Well, it sounds like an important step to be taking in terms of that blockchain infrastructure and a almost, I don't know if to say obvious, I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but a sort of a clear application of where blockchain can come and create, help, remove some of the friction from that environment. But of course, as we said earlier, alluded to earlier, this is not the only project that Winding Tree is working on. You guys now have a partnership with Claros to create a decentralized arbitration system. And I want to bring in Federico Ast, CEO of Claros, into the conversation. Federico, thanks so much for joining us. And I want to start with you, if you can maybe open up and tell us a little bit about this partnership and what it is you guys will be doing.
Sure, thank you for having me. Claros is a protocol that seeks to provide decentralized courts for the blockchain ecosystem. Like, for example, you have now lots of projects that are trying to build e-commerce platforms, decentralized freelancing platforms, decentralized content sharing networks. So these platforms, they have disputes, right, between a user who claims that another user did not provide the service that was required, or that the service was not up to the standards that were agreed upon. So the blockchain ecosystem needs some protocol for dispute resolution of all these lots of disputes and conflicts that are going to arise in these decentralized platforms. So how Claros works, you have a platform, you have a conflict, and then you delegate dispute resolution to Claros. You send the disputes you have in the platform, and Claros sends you back the decisions made by a jury that is drawn with game theory, incentives, and crowdsourcing. And so this provides a very important piece of infrastructure for the blockchain ecosystem to grow and to prosper, because it provides what I would call like rule of law into blockchain. So one of the use cases of Claros is a verification system. For example, you want to submit your company to the OrgID list of companies in good standing. And how does people check? So you need someone to check if the company complies with the rules that are required by the organization to be accepted as a company in good standing. So Claros can provide a service where a number of decentralized jurors are going to analyze the submission made by the company, and they're going to see if it complies with what is required, and then if it complies, it's going to be accepted into the list. So this is the essence of the partnership we're doing with Winding Tree.
Okay, all right. So Maxim, I want to draw you back into this conversation and ask your views on this particular partnership, this relationship, and this dispute mechanism that utilizes the power of blockchain. How do you guys imagine that going into the future?
So first of all, let me say that Claros, through their research and their extensive knowledge of the topic, they developed a phenomenal application, and we're very inspired by what they do. And in our case, we're using, as Federico said, within the OrgID ecosystem, you can provide all sorts of different proofs. You can expose all sorts of different proofs on the network so that other companies that, let's say, want to do business with you, they can verify those things in a completely automated manner and, let's say, connect to your API through this very streamlined KYB process. And Claros is an important part of this. We have this concept of segment directories, or just directories, as we call them, of organizations of different types. Let's say we have a directory of all the hotels on the platform, right? And in order to achieve an ultimate verification status within the platform, that's where Claros comes in, where anyone can verify whether that hotel exists. They can maybe call them. That person who would verify that through this Kleros court is called a challenger, and anyone could challenge that submission. There's a lot of really interesting game theory going on there. And basically, at the end of the day, whether it's a hotel or other type of organization, you can have a stamp of approval that it was not just proven through you verifying your website or verifying your legal entity information, but through real people looking at your organization and saying, yes, this organization exists, they really do business, they have good services, et cetera, et cetera. So that kind of stuff. So this is the human component that we have on blockchain, but it's still decentralized, right? So usually humans in computer networks are the middlemen if you have that stuff. But Kleros provides this unique functionality where you have humans looking at your stuff, but it's still very much decentralized.
Right. So, Federico, to throw it back to you then, I would say, that sort of don't trust, verify model, which has been sort of a central pillar of so much of the blockchain, crypto, digital assets world since its creation. You're now trying to implement that in the world of arbitration, in the world of justice and disputes. Looking forward to the future. Where do you envisage this going at its sort of peak and at its pinnacle?
Let me tell you a bit about me. I'm from Argentina. So as you know, Argentina is a pretty important blockchain community because of the problems that the country had with currencies and government, etc. But there is one specific thing that was happening a couple of years ago, that if you wanted to register your company and to make business, and if you were not a friend of the government, so if you were opposing government policies, you had a quite high risk that the government office of company registry would reject your request to register your company. So that was a way in which the government sought to control the opposition. And this type of initiatives like OrgID seek to break this censorship made by governments on people through what you can register and what you can't register. So the whole vision of Claros is to provide infrastructure where people can make the agreements that they want to, like they create companies, and that they can make a contract with people from other jurisdictions. In particular, in a moment where the global business is becoming global, and you have teams distributed in different countries, and you will have disputes happening between a company in Argentina with a company in Tanzania, and you will have the team which is distributed in Argentina, and one is in Australia, and then in the US. So this new global infrastructure for commerce requires a new infrastructure for law. Kleros is trying to provide the arbitration tools for this to happen.
All right, well, it certainly sounds like between the two companies there, between Winding Tree and Claros itself, there are some powerful tools being created here that can, in concert, work to create a pretty incredible, powerful, decentralized future that takes the power out of the hands of the few and into the hands of the many. Maxim and Federico, I want to thank you gentlemen so much for taking the time to speak to us today about these fascinating new projects. We'll be eager to continue covering how they develop into the future and what the future iterations look like. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being with us. And for those at home, keep watching at blocktv.com for all the latest in news and information. I'm Westropp-Evans. Thanks for watching.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.